Welcome to the Applied Sports Psychology and Injury Research and Education Lab podcast, also known as the Aspire Lab podcast. We created this podcast to further understand sport injuries and learn more about them from the people we interview. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Aspire Lab podcast. I'm Connor Kahoun.
I'm Eddin Djelovic.
Today we have our first guest, Jennifer Corral. She's a bodybuilder, personal trainer, business owner, kinesiology graduate, and a candidate for the Master of Science in Nutrition at UIC.
We brought you on the podcast today to discuss your experiences, both personal and professional, with our research focused on the relationship between eating disorders, disordered eating, and injury in athletes. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
How are you doing today, Connor?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right, so let's jump into our first question.
Yeah, of course.
So, is there something you learned from the nutrition program so far that you wish you knew before beginning your journey as a bodybuilder?
Definitely. I think the biggest thing going into nutrition in itself is understanding the physiological aspects. You know, certain things that I did as a bodybuilder, I would have not known what would have happened to me. You know, for example, I had a craving for carrots the entire time I was in my journey of bodybuilding. I would eat carrots every single day. And I think after like a month or so, my hands turned orange. And so that's how much I was eating carrots. And it was just interesting to me. And I laugh about it now, but at that moment I was like, what's happening to me? I'm researching, I'm trying to understand. And at that point, I didn't know what the upper limits of vitamins and minerals were. I didn't know those certain things. And that's kind of like what I'm learning now. That I'm like, okay, if I knew that then, I probably wouldn't have eaten that much, or I wouldn't have removed certain items. You know, I was under the guidance of a coach, which she was amazing, but you don't know these things that are going to happen to your body because everyone is so different when they go under this journey. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you feel a difference when you first started bodybuilding and you said you didn't know the proper diet and the proper vitamins, and then now that you know proper diet and dieting, do you feel a difference with your training?
Yeah, I mean, I will say a diet when you're in bodybuilding is very different from your everyday diet as just a person who works out at the gym. You know, bodybuilding is a sport, so you need to understand what nutrients you need in order to keep up with that type of training. You know, I was training strength training 5 days a week, and I would do 2 to 3 times of fasted cardio. So for my body, you know, at the time, my coach and I both didn't know how my body was going to respond. So I had to train before I actually went into training. I had to do kind of like a pre-training for about 2 months to understand what was going to happen. You know, if I needed more food than the other bodybuilders, you know. So I actually lost weight very quickly, and it was hard to keep on mass. So I was probably eating about 25 to 3,000 calories towards the end of it. For both of us, we were very astonished. We're just like, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know that my metabolism was going to act this way. So I look about it now, you know, I started bodybuilding when I was 23. So at that time, my metabolism was very different from now in my 30s. So I see what I eat then and what I eat now, I probably couldn't do that same thing because our body changes, hormone changes, and my environment changed. So it is very different in that regimen.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go to the next one.
Yeah, of course.
So from your experience with bodybuilding, have you seen any negative relationships with eating behaviors that should be addressed?
So I will say, when it comes to bodybuilding, it is very mentally straining. I will say it is very competitive, and I do have a competitive nature myself. So I did find myself wanting to do more than what my coach did. You know, she would tell me like, relax, like whatever we have in our plan is what we're going to go with, you know. But I didn't think it was enough at the time. You know, I was like, you know, I was looking at who I was going to be competing with. I didn't know what to expect. So, you know, maybe I would add another workout, or, you know, I was questioning myself if I was disciplined enough with my food. I think food in general for me was very social. So I used food to hang out with my friends and my family. And when I was in bodybuilding, it went away. Not completely, but if it didn't align with my journey, I wasn't going to go to that social event, you know. And so I realized that that went away. And when I think about it, I wouldn't say that it was necessarily all completely negative, because I did have a goal in mind and I really wanted to give it my all. But I realized that the social aspect of food wasn't there anymore. And that's where I'm kind of like, I need to take a step back, think about what food is to me, and then reintroduce it back into my life after bodybuilding. But I think in the moment, I did miss that social aspect of food. It was really something that was important to me. It's what I enjoyed. You know, for me, when I was training, food was going to get me where I wanted to be in the competition. And that was basically, at that point, that was it.
Did you feel like it was challenging to get all those calories in initially when you started?
It really was. So at that time, after I graduated UIC, my undergrad, I went to Dominican for a post-bac program. And so I was full-time school, I was part-time work, and I was full-time doing this bodybuilding regimen. So eating, I had to, I probably still had about 1,000 calories by the time I hit bed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm going to eat. And it was terrible. And then on top of food being hard, water was really tough. I was drinking a gallon of water a day, which was not something I was used to. And thinking back now and what I know now, I may have not needed that full gallon of water. It's all different depending how much you move, how much you sweat, all these different factors. And I didn't know that, but I was, 10:30 p.m. still trying to chug my gallon of, water. And it was tough. It was really tough. Again, it was something where physiologically I'm like, is my body okay? Like I was cramping. I didn't understand if, where water, I needed electrolytes too. I didn't know that. I was just like, okay, whatever supplements I need and whatever water I need, I'll just put it together and that's it. So it was tough in that regard too.
Yeah, I feel like with water, because I recently started drinking a lot of water too myself. I literally had this 64-ounce water bottle to motivate me.
Yeah.
But it's so hard, and I carry it around campus all the time. It's literally like 7 pounds.
It's like,
And I'm like, what motivates me is like, all right, drink some, it'll be less heavy.
Yeah, and I had something like that, and I'm like, this is not realistic. Like, it's not efficient for me to lug around like a 7-pound water bottle. And so it was interesting that having to do that, but I was so proud. Like at that moment, I was like, I'm gonna hold my jug, my gallon jug of water, and it's okay. And it's also like how many times you're going to the washroom. Like for me, I was working working part time, so I was working at the bank at the time. I couldn't just keep going to the washroom.
Yeah.
Like it was very disruptive to my day, and I would have to like ask my supervisor, like, please let me go. So it's just, does it align with your life, right? Like even someone who is just working out at the gym every day, if you're a full-time student, do you have access to a bathroom all the time? Do you have access to certain things that you may need to then acquire a quote unquote healthy lifestyle? So we think it's healthy, so we're like, we're gonna do it, but then we realize I don't really enjoy carrying that water bottle. What's the solution to that? Stuff like that.
Yeah, is there any advice that you could give people who are getting into who are becoming new bodybuilders, like advice for water and nutrients?
I think it's understanding your intake. There are formulas that you can, jot down in regards to how much water you need as a person, and, and kind of understanding your movement patterns. And also understanding that electrolytes are just as equally important. So it's first understanding how much water you need plus you exercising, and then, balancing that out with electrolytes as well, because you will start to notice you cramping. You might have an imbalance of certain nutrients, and so you don't want to get to that point because it does become painful. You have to understand what your body is going to end up doing. If they think water in itself is great, which it is, but you need to balance that out. Your body is basically balancing everything that you're putting in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just those three aspects. I think it's electrolytes, it's water, and understanding how much you sweat. So if you know that you sweat more than usual, maybe you will need more fluids. If you don't sweat as much, but you understand that you're going to be going through a rigorous training program, that might change. So or you need more water in that sense.
Yeah, so just sort of being aware of sort of the factors within your life, sweat, just amount exercising, and then just sort of external factors.
Yeah, I think it's also at the time that it was very cookie cutter. Like, you drink the 1 gallon, that was it. So kind of question this format a little bit. Do you know that this format is really going to work for you? Is 6 meals a day really going to work for you?
Yeah.
Is 1 gallon really the holy number of getting enough fluids in your body? So it's questioning that before anything, and then diving in, because it really isn't catered to you. At that point, it's just catered to what the bodybuilders have done in the past. So it worked, so then you can do it. Which is fine to a certain extent until it doesn't work anymore.
Of course.
Yeah.
I remember, because I'm a nutrition minor as well. I took this nutrition class, and there was a calculation that you can calculate the amount of water. So if you exercise, you would weigh yourself before you exercise and then after, and then you do some type of calculation where it tells you how much water you lost, and then you would consume that water, and then you would be back to normal, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm not necessarily familiar with the exact formula, but I do know that, you can calculate that. And then also, I know one of my professors had said, when you are working out, you take small sips of water as you work out. Some people tend to chug, but it's just taking smaller sips in between when you know that you've done something a little bit more rigorous. So that's something else to kind of help you and replenish the fluids that you're losing, or through sweat. Yeah.
Okay, so for the next question, so this will kind of bounce off of your idea with the importance of knowing your calories and your macros. So this question is, have you seen people new to training or calorie/macro tracking that had a goal of losing weight but didn't have the proper training and were injured in the process?
Yeah, this is a really good question, because I haven't necessarily seen people physically injured, but I think it does take a mental toll. So when you see someone very new to nutrition and to movement, they see on the internet, whatever social platform, that macro counting is really great to lose weight. And so they really want to adapt to it. They're really excited. And then they do it, and they do it for maybe about a month, and then it's not working anymore. Or they realize it's really tough. It doesn't align to their work schedule or their school schedule. And they're really hard on themselves, because instead of blaming macro counting, they blame themselves. They blame themselves for not knowing or not doing it right, or they think that they're not disciplined enough, or everyone else is doing it, how come I can't do it? And that takes a lot out of the person. So it's having someone there to say, there are so many other factors that determine what your weight loss or weight gain journey can be. Positive energy balance or negative energy balance doesn't always mean weight gain or weight loss. It's not, they do talk about, calories in and calories out, but it's a thought. There are still several factors, social factors, food accessibility, hormone changes, age, gender, all that really plays into account for your body changes. You don't know, and there's some times where you don't even know if you're going to like your body image once you do lose weight or gain weight. You don't even know that, because you don't know what it looks like. So macro counting in itself, sometimes I think it could just really take a mental toll on the person. I think what we really need to do is, before anything, is understand your relationship with food and health. Where are you at that moment? Can you really take on macro counting? Sometimes it could be good if you just want to get an idea of what your plate should look like in regards to size, food size. But if you use it on a consistent basis, will it grow into something else? Will you want to put your food on a scale and make sure that it's, if you had 200 grams of protein allotted to you, you want it to be 200. If you see 201, you have to take that 1 gram. It can get that minute, and then that takes a toll mentally. So I think people end up really mentally injuring themselves in that sense. And that's not everyone, but if you are not familiar with the field, if you're not familiar with physiology, if you're not familiar with nutrition, these are the things that you can come across.
Do you have any recommendations on how to limit those experiences?
Yeah, I think therapy. I think counseling is very important. Something I didn't have when I was doing my journey. I did have my coach, and she was amazing. She any emotional, roller coaster I went through, she was there to talk me through it. But you still need a professional to talk about certain things, what's going on with your body. Do you like your body? Do you like what you're doing? Is this giving you, you yourself, are you confident in yourself, or is this journey is what's giving you validation? Which one do you want to come first? So someone kind of going into that journey and going into macro counting, you have to really ask these really hard questions so that you can be sure of yourself before anything, because your body is going to go through a tremendous change. And so it's when you have that confidence instilled in you, then whatever changes you go through, you can acclimate to.
I see.
Yeah.
How about somebody that's wanting to just get into it? Do you have a recommendation on how or where they can begin, where they start small and then little by little they build?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the regimen in itself. With bodybuilding, you don't know what your body, how much movement your body needs to change. So, you do have to, work out a certain amount of times a week. You do have to figure out the foods, the amount of food that you need to buy. I think you have to ask yourself, are you able to do it financially? It's a very expensive sport. You have to buy supplements. You have to pay your coach. You have to pay for personal training sessions. You have to buy 3,000 calories worth of food. And it is very, very expensive. I was very fortunate to have a lot of support, and I was also working at the time, but all my money went to that. I was just like, here, take it. This will make me better. But I think it's having that coach that will acclimate towards you and not necessarily what the past of the bodybuilding world was. If I don't want to have 6 meals a day, could my coach be knowledgeable enough to give me 3 meals a day? And can we figure it out that way? Can my workout regimen be a little bit more exciting, rather than, Mondays chest and Tuesdays is legs and stuff like that? Could I change it up? Because sometimes it can become mundane. My journey was about 7 months. So I was doing the same thing for 7 months straight. And I was eating almost very similar foods every single month. And at the time I didn't, I was so excited. So I didn't think about it. I was just like, this is amazing. I don't care if I have chicken and rice every single day. But now I think back, I'm like, I could have used some salsa in there. I could have put some, different flavors. So I think it is having that guidance from someone to really help you and also do that self-reflection. Everyone has their different self-beliefs, their own different identities, and so you really need to understand who you are as a person before you make this type of change.
Could you touch on, with your own personal experiences as a bodybuilder, personal training, and then as well as in your experience in the nutrition program, can you touch on the importance of eating nutrient-dense foods versus eating, if somebody needs to consume 3,000 calories, why couldn't they just go to McDonald's, for example, and consume that?
No, absolutely. And it is interesting. I've seen people where they try to experiment where they will have fast food that would be equivalent to the 3,000, and they're still very strong and they're very muscle wise. But over the years, my input has changed. I think when I was in bodybuilding, I was very involved in the clean foods or foods that are deemed healthy, and so from that in itself, I realized it's not that serious. You don't always have to eat so healthy to be healthy. So eating foods that are nutrient dense are very important, and I think that should be the majority of your food, but it doesn't have to be 100%. And so with nutrient dense food, I think it's important also because I feel like nutrient dense is starting to become a buzzword for a lot of people now. But it's more of just eating a variety of foods that you enjoy, but foods that are going to give you energy. I think it's trying to change the language a bit, so that you understand that food is there to serve you as a human being. It's there to bring you joy. It's there for you to make sure that you are enjoying it with your family and friends. And nutrient dense food in itself, I think without a proper coach or a proper RD, registered dietitian, you may not know what that means. What foods actually do have really high nutrient dense profile. If you don't know that, then you might just be adding whatever foods and just putting it into a plate. But there is some, method to the madness of it all. But I don't want people to lose sight of it. Just has to all be healthy. There is room in your diet to have some frozen foods or canned foods or even fast food or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we are human. And it is something that, and I think needs to be relayed a little bit more. And that can also be nutrient dense. If we can only afford that, then how can we make that work? How can we I still incorporate frozen foods and vegetables and canned foods and all that, because it's what I can afford, in certain moments in time. So it's what can, at the end of the day, I think you are healthier. I think that in itself is nutrient dense, because you are treating yourself as a whole person. So, so I think that's really important. It's just having that complete plate for you. And yes, it can be nutrient dense, but it can also, there is room for less nutrient dense foods in your life.
So what are your thoughts on, say, like a cheat day for bodybuilding, or just anybody looking to get into sort of exercise?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie, when I was in bodybuilding, I used a lot of cheat days. But it was only when my coach allowed me to. So it was very restrictive, right? She's like, well, and my cheat day was like sushi. Like it wasn't like a hamburger, something that we would normally get. And I realized how detrimental that phrase is, because someone has to give you that permission to have that meal. And then also it's giving yourself permission to have that meal, as opposed to just confidently eating what you want. It's meaning that it's showing that you have been restrictive in yourself, and the only way that you are going to reward yourself is through that cheat meal. I've been good all week. I've worked out 3 times a week. I had all the meals that I cooked in my meal prep, and now I can have this cheat meal. But now, if you don't, so say you already had the cheat meal on a Tuesday, then Thursday you're going to go out with friends, but now you're going to say no because you already used your cheat meal day on a Tuesday, right? So it becomes this, what are you sacrificing? And do you even like that you're sacrificing this? And I think it also can stir up other issues down the line of negative eating patterns. You don't want to use food as a way of how would you call it, of award or like a reward. Once you do that, then you kind of lose power in a sense. So how do you question yourself, like, okay, is this really a cheat meal, or is this just a meal I really enjoy? So how do we change that? I do see a lot of people that still use it. I see a lot of people on social media that still use that. And I wish I could go on there and just be like, no, it is not. It's not called a cheat meal. It shouldn't be in our vocabulary anymore. Because I do think when I removed that from myself and I just allowed myself to eat food, just without thinking it's a cheat meal. Like if I had, what I used to think was a cheat meal was like sushi or, pizza or hamburger. And now I'm like, this is just food I really love. And it's really nice and freeing to say that and not have to feel guilty about eating a cheat. Because even then, when you're eating a cheat meal, you still somewhat feel guilty. Like, because you're kind of like, it's not part of my plan. The only reason I justified having a cheat meal was because my coach said I could. Yeah. And that was a lot of power I gave someone else. So for me, it was really interesting, that dynamic that I never had, because I had such a great upbringing of food. my mom allowed me to self-direct a lot of my meal times. She never restricted me or, told me I couldn't eat this or that. She just kind of gave me that power. So I always had that instilled. If it wasn't for that upbringing, I don't know if I would be the same outlook that I have now. Because a lot of your eating patterns or behaviors come from as a child or just your past family history. So if I didn't have that, would I be a little different after coming out of bodybuilding? Because I will say even after bodybuilding, it did take me a while to go back into eating meals in a different way than the bodybuilding way.
So when you talk about the bodybuilding way, what do you mean about that?
Well, I guess when I say the bodybuilding way, I do say, no matter what, at the end of the day, bodybuilding is a sport. It's an amazing sport, and I commend everyone that is involved in it, regardless if it's something that you check off in your bucket list or something that you do year to year. But as any athlete, you have to eat to perform. So in that sense, it's performance-wise. Am I going to be able to upkeep all these calories? Knowing that my body needs 3,000 calories to eat to keep up with that type of training, I don't think I was able to continue doing that. It was just a lot of food. Even if I got used to, now I still do. I eat more than my husband. I eat more than my husband's brother. And they're 6'2". They're really tall, and I still eat more than them. But I think it's just I just changed my metabolism so much, which is so interesting to me. But it's, the bodybuilding way, I guess it's more of the athlete way, if you really want to commit to that, eating that much or, eating that certain way for that performance, for me right now and where I am in my life, I don't need to eat that much. I don't need to, I need to eat in order to think well, to academically perform, I don't work out 5 times a week anymore. I probably work maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and my body loves it. I had to really just listen to my body. And understanding I'm an athlete, but I'm also human, and I'm growing up, and into my adulthood years now. And so it's different. My hormones have changed since I was in my early 20s. My finances have changed, and I'm learning so much from being in my program. So now it's kind of I'm kind of taking that power back and now using it for other conversations like this.
Did you have any more questions?
I did not.
Me neither. Did you have any questions for us?
No. Well, I guess it's more understanding, what was your takeaway from the conversation, and what is your viewpoint on bodybuilding versus someone who is just an avid workout, person?
Mm-hmm. I think my takeaway from this conversation is that for almost any sport, you have to have a positive relationship with food so that you can not only feel good about yourself, but feel good about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I agree. To even add on to that also motivates you to keep going, knowing your purpose, knowing your why, and it keeps you motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that motivation helps a lot, and it helps to know that your ability to change throughout your lifetime. You're not the same person in your 20s as to your 30s or into your 40s. And so when you understand that, you know how to acclimate in that change. You might not like some of the changes you're going through in your body, but you understand what's happening, and that helps you like who you are. That helps you what you need to change if you want to make the change. And so motivation in itself is huge.
Yeah, I agree. If you start small, you can become a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You can become an athlete, whatever you want to become. As long as you start small, you're consistent. That's what I take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to become a bodybuilder or you want to just try it once.
Yeah.
And it's definitely an experience, but it's have to understand in the beginning is it right for me? Will I really take out everything I want from it? And from there, I think it's just a lot of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your take on the positive aspect of bodybuilding? Now you know all of this, you went through all of this.
Yeah.
Would you do it again? Would you tell people to do it themselves?
So I personally would not do it again. I think going into it and when I came out, I did want to do it again, but then I realized it wasn't right for my lifestyle. Like I couldn't combine it again. I think there was a lot of thrill in the first time going through it, but then afterwards I'm like, I have a family now. I enjoy having different types of foods and not having to stick to just a plan. If I didn't have to have that particular concise plan, maybe things have changed since I've been in it that I could, there could be a lot more variety in your journey than maybe I would. And for people who want to, I think it's something that, again, when you do your self-reflection, then you can decide. If you feel that within your self-reflection that there are some underlying issues or relationship issues that you have with food and nutrition in your own health or, past history, you might have to rethink, is this something that I can do? And then again, like we talked about the financial component of it, it's not $100 a month. It's like $1,000, $1,500 a month. You're paying someone to help you throughout your entire journey. I would never do something like this on my own. I was very grateful for my coach, and I'm still friends with her now. Like, she is an amazing human being, and we have both grown, from that part, and it's, in improving ourselves within this industry. So it's really just that self-reflection that's really going to tell you, should I do it or not? Because it really isn't for everyone, but that's for any sport. Like I can't do basketball, like I can't play basketball, and not everyone can either. So it's the same concept.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right, so that's all the questions we have for you today. Thank you so much for taking your time to come on the podcast and discuss these topics. We would love to have you on the podcast again.
Of course, more than happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Aspire Lab podcast. If you're interested in more information about Aspire Lab and kinesiology at the University of Illinois, Chicago, please feel free to email us at aspire@uic.edu.